Korea's global ranking for gross domestic product has remained stagnant for 6 straight years. Korea Development Institute has also lowered its outlook for Korea's economic growth rate from 4.1% to 3.7%. The government attributes the slowdown in growth to weak domestic demand. To address the weakening economy, President Park reshuffled her cabinet in July and established a second economic team led by newly appointed Finance Minister Choi Kyung-hwan.
금융, 재정을 비롯해서 정부가 동원할 수 있는 모든 수단을 써서 경제 살리기를 위한 총력전을 펼쳐주기 바랍니다.
For the second half of this year, the president's new economic team unveiled plans for a stimulus package of 41 trillion won to improve domestic demand and revitalize the national economy. On July 24th, when the government unveiled plans for a stimulus package of 41 trillion won, the main opposition New Politics Alliance for Democracy was quick to criticize it. The criticism is that the plans are merely a repeat of similar measures introduced by past administrations, and that the pump priming efforts will only serve to create a short-term bubble. But the second economic team has rebutted the criticism, saying that pump priming efforts through an expansion of public finances is an inevitable measure due to the continuously low growth rate over the last 4 years. We take a closer look at the controversies surrounding the issue.
Thanks for tuning in and welcome to Upfront. I'm Na-hyun Kyung.
Hello, I'm Yoo Jong-soo. It has been about a month since Park Geun-hye administration's second economic team was established and announced its first policy to boost the domestic economy.
And Chuseok, the Korean Thanksgiving, is just around the corner. And by looking at how much people spend leading up to Chuseok, officials can get a glimpse of how they really feel about the Korean economy.
Right, and we are going to discuss the outlook and the challenges facing the Korean economy. And also, we had a chance to meet with the heads of several economic institutes later in the show.
That's right. But first, we are joined in the studio by economics professor Ip-sang from Seoul National University.
Hi, thank you very much for having me.
And Professor Shin Sang-yeop, also a professor in economics from Kyung-hee University.
Thank you
both. It's good to have you both on the program.
Well, let's first look at the current state of the domestic economy.
Right. There's been a lot of buzz surrounding Finance Minister Choi Kyung-hwan's new economic policies, but it's not like we've seen other reform measures in the past. But why is his policy gaining a bit more of attention per se?
Well, I think the Korean economy is almost in vegetable state now. The economy is not moving at all. The economy has two axes. One is consumption, the other is investment. The consumption in Korea is minimal, and investment is ever sluggish. And those two axes are almost broken. That's why the Korean economy is not moving. Under this situation, Minister Choi Kyung-hwan announced that we'll pump the money and we'll ease the regulations until the economy revives again. Hearing that, many people are excited about it. Expecting that there may be some change in the economy. But still, many people remain skeptical about it, saying that his policy is too hasty and irrational. That's why so many debates and arguments around the country.
And Professor Shin?
Well, basically, I have the same idea with the Professor Lee. But if I add up something more, well, actually, according to the new economic policy unveiled by the second new economic team, it has 3 objectives. The first one is the revitalizing the domestic market, and second one is the stabilizing the livelihoods of the public, and the third one is the promoting the economic innovation. Well, as Professor Lee explained already, for these objectives, the government will decide to use the financial and physical policies. But like the coin, which has 2 sides, well, actually, there is no perfect policies. But one aspect is, shows some strong points, but while the other point shows some weak point. Well, as Professor Lee explained, considering the current economic situation in Korea, definitely the government should do something, but it requires more considerations, more preparation. Without it, maybe we can face another round of difficulties. That's the reason why there are pros and cons about the new economic policy of the second economic team, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Professor Lee, you have expressed some concerns about the policies proposed by the second economic team. Can you please elaborate the issues that you concerns on this issue?
I'm not opposing to the government policy. I'm just saying we need the comprehensive approach to solve the problem. I agree that we need a drastic measure to vitalize the second economy. Excuse me. But the government policy is too simple. The core of the economic problem in Korea is the extreme polarization between the big companies and small companies. And because of that, we have two problems. One is the economy has lost its ability to create new industries. Second, the economy has lost its ability to create jobs. So economy is in turmoil. So before pumping money and easing regulations, the government should make blueprint that vitalize small companies, ventures, and etc. So we must have new industrial structure. Based on that, we need money pumping and easing regulations. So the government policy is too superficial. That's why I'm saying I must be concerned. I have a concern about the policy.
If I had something more about on the top of the explanation of Professor Lee.
Sure.
Well, you know, Korean economic structure has been relied very heavily on external economic relations, trade. This is the point one. Second one is that, you know, we have had so-called a few number of strategic industries, shipbuilding industry, auto industry, and steels. But look at the situation we face. That is actually the Korean, the companies in these so-called strategic industries are facing serious competition. So when we look at we analyze the market of those products, there are oversupply of the products, which means that Korean strategic industries will face serious competition. So that will be a kind of some big challenges to the Korean economy. And the third one is, to change the economic fundamentals or structure means that government should suggest a newer industry, so-called. Without the newer, the changing the economic structure, I think Korean economy will face serious difficulties. Look at the situation for the last few years. You know, particularly Korean economy has been slowed down. Depending on the perspectives. Well, somebody said that we are in very serious situation. Well, somebody said no, it's like a temporary phenomenon. So we can overcome these challenges. Actually, the government take the second position. The government empathize that, well, this is not very serious. Well, the Korean economy was revitalizing before the Seoul tragedy. Because of that tragedy, of course, we have some economic structural problems, such as very high unemployment rate and about 6 million part-time, low-income part-time workers. We have some structural problems. However, the government empathized that, no, this is not the chronicle, we are not in a very serious situation. This is like a temporary one, so we can overcome it. So I think the government have those kind of the assessment about current Korean economic situation, but what the measures which they're taking is too much. They just try to, take some too much aggressive the measures to fix the so-called temporary, if I quote,
just
temporary.
Quick fix.
Yeah, sure. So it's mismatched. Between their assessment and measures. Because of that, as Professor Lee emphasized, that the government should have to prepare. More, because those kind of mismatched, approaches taken by the government. Maybe people think that why? The government has a really understand the situation correctly, and do they prepare a lot for the situation? I mean, this is a question we can have.
They say something, but to some
yeah,
other things.
yeah, right.
Let me add something to that.
Sure.
I think that basically the government's policy is pump priming. The real problem is that the pump itself is out of order.
Right.
Pump here means the whole industries. So even if the government puts in much water, the pump doesn't work. That means we have to fix the pump first. But they're not doing that. So given that situation, if they just continues money pumping, we may have a bad result, so-called economic bubble.
Basically, one thing which I want to buy from their policies, as I said before, the government gave quite a strong and clear image to the market. You know what I mean? Because for the last several years, I think the market, the people do not trust the government policies, government measures, so to speak. But right now, certainly, the Minister Choi gave a very clear and strong message to the market. So I think I want to give some credit to this point.
New Finance Minister Choi Kyung-hwan has shown he's willing to forge a new path to revitalize the domestic economy. We take a look at 3 focal points of the newly revealed economy policy by looking at his recent remarks.
If major companies release more of their internal reserves, at least that which is equivalent to the benefits they receive from corporate taxes, through investment, stock dividends, or wage increase, they can get tax exemptions.
The government has decided to tax major companies that don't invest a specified amount of their internal reserves back into the market. Companies have expressed dissatisfaction with the plan.
The domestic economy will only take a step forward when we change the regulations and break down passive administrative policies.
In order to modernize old regulations and the closed market structure, the government plans to deregulate 7 service sectors, including medicine, finance, and tourism. The plan has generated strong criticism, raising questions about whether people may try to evade the law.
In order to relieve the burden of potential home buyers, the government will ease regulations on borrowing funds, including the LTV and DTI ratios.
Deregulation is also taking place in real estate. The plan is to ease regulations on loan approvals to boost home sales. However, it has raised concerns of an increase of household debt.
And the rising household debt you did mention, and one of the reasons is because the household economy's dependence on real estate. So is there a way to break out of that cycle? Is it creating more jobs? Could that be another solution?
No, I mean, this government emphasized we have to vitalize real estate market, and that could be a basis for the economy to move again, but I don't think so. I don't think it's a good comparison, but I have to compare the economy to a dog, the barking dog. Well, the body of a dog wags the tail.
Right.
The tail doesn't wag the body. That means the whole economy vitalized real estate market. The real estate market does not vitalize the whole economy. So, to vitalize the real estate market and to make the people feel richer than before, then we have to vitalize industries and the whole economy. That should come first. But Choi Kyung-hwan team just say we have to vitalize real estate market and that will make the whole economy become active and so on. And I think this is a fallacy.
Well, if I had something to that. Actually, well, the problem is this. I mean, without, well, I want to also making a story. Without job, I can borrow the money from the bank. With that money, if I keep on spending, you know, I will face difficulties. I will face serious difficulties. Well, same thing. The government to revitalize the real estate market. Of course, real estate market take a large portion in national economy. It's really big, important. But as Professor Lee explained, real estate market can vitalize the national economy as a whole. You know, it may be possible, but it's extremely difficult. So the national economy should be revitalized first. In this context, in this environment, the real estate market can be revitalized. Then, in such a kind of situation, if the government use DTI and the LTV, well, deregulate, changing of that one, then it can create very so-called very positive outcomes. But right now, as we discussed so far, the first part is missing. They just one thing about that. Well, you can borrow more money, you can purchase the houses, but without, as I said before, without without income, how they can pay back the loans? I mean, that's the problem. So if I quote one of the sayings on the opposition party, political party, congressman, he said that this part should be, more important than this part. But according to the new economic policy, well, we cannot find enough explanation about how they revitalize national economy as a whole.
So boosting domestic demand will have to come first before the real estate market is revitalized or try to be revitalized is the key, seems to be the key, right? So
I have another concern about the deregulation of the loans, household loans. Well, DTI LTV, it is eased, and people can lend more money, borrow more money. But the quality of household debt is worsening.
Yes, getting worse, yes.
And the loans they are borrowing are mostly for living, education, and repaying the existing debt. That means we may have more household debt, and it becomes more and more riskier. So the government policy of deregulation in real estate market may produce a bad result. And well, that's really a concern.
It can create the non-performing loans, no LPL or HS, or called bad loans, and then the household debt would be increased. Then our financial sector in Korean economy will be disastrous.
We may have another financial risk.
Yes, so it's going to be a very, it's a very bad scenario, but it could happen. So the many experts, including myself, I think Professor Lee also shared with my idea. That's one of the worrying concerns we have regarding the new economic policy.
Right, so let's stop for a moment here and get some more opinions on this matter. We talked to President Yoon Chang-hyun, the president of the Korea Institute of Finance. Take a look.
It is not a measure to reduce the household debt. It may be, it will increase the household debt, I think. But the amount of debt can be increased a little. But the most important point is that who take the debt? I mean, who borrow money from the bank, and to whom the banks give loans to. Even if LTV and DTI is increased a little, it means that that is just the upper limit. Within the limit, the banks can control their ratios. The risk management system is working, and the banks will evaluate the credit scores and situation of the borrowers. Even if it's increasing a little, it's not a big problem. I termed it as a safety finance. And we checked the statistics, and we found that the SOC stock, the value of SOC stock is around 2,000 trillion won, and we put lots of cost in maintaining the social overhead capital infrastructures, and the maintenance fee is like 0.3% of all the stocks, but the developed countries are spending 1%, so there is a gap. So it means that we put more on the investment of social overhead capital, then it will increase the growth rate and it will be helpful to revive our economy.
So investing in infrastructure is key in revitalizing the domestic economy, according to President Yoon. But in order for that theory to work, it seems like some of the existing regulations may have to be eased.
Well, easing regulations on real estate and attracting investment to build conference facilities, resort and entertainment complex may have a positive effect to boost the economy. But there are expected side effects along the way. To minimize this side effect, what kind of supplemental policies should be taken?
Well, first of all, the regulations in Korea is really the public enemy. And I think the whole economy is controlled by the bureaucracy, and the bureaucracy is using the regulations as a means to control the whole economy. So we have to reduce or abolish many regulations. But there are two kinds of regulations. One kind is good ones, and the other is bad ones. The good regulations include antitrust and fair competition, and the protection of natural environment, and social safety, and etc. The bad regulations include business permission by the government, and government's market controls, and supervision by the government over the private sector, and etc. So the bad regulations must be reduced drastically, and some should be abolished. But each government, whenever they steps in, they say the deregulation. But it's saying that we have to deregulate to have more casinos, and we have more resort, etc. But it may help the economy to vitalize in some sense, but it really hurts the society as a whole. Casino is gambling. Resort is destroying the natural environment. So we must have some balance. But the government, I don't think they have a good balance between the social value and the hasty construction.
But that's only in the case of the casinos. I mean, you did say bad regulations have to be, they have to be getting rid of, but one of the bad regulations you mentioned was business permission, and isn't that what the government is doing right now?
They have business permission even for the good businesses, which is very necessary to the economy. And they also have the right to permit the bad the business like casino and resort. And they just deregulate the bad side, not the good side. And they still want to control, to keep the control of the whole economy.
Well, a couple of weeks ago, the Upfront team went to Jeju Island to meet with the Governor Won, and he mentioned about what good province government should do in terms of keeping the preserved nature, and also while inviting the foreign investors to invest in terms of structures and complex and resort, all that. So do you think the government regulation is too stiff, or we should have certain, as we asked, the supplemental policies should be set?
Let me answer your question this way. In fact, the regulation is very important, but once you change it, to change it one more time is very, very difficult. So what I'm saying is that there are good regulation and bad regulation, particularly at national level. When they change regulation, there should be enough study about so-called side effects based on the bad scenario, worse situation. Well, we can understand situation happening in Jeju Island with this frame. Well, casino is a really productive industry. Well, it can be a good entertainment business, industry, but on the mid or long-term basis, what kind of the contribution we can expect from casino business in Jeju Island?
Couldn't it help boost local economy though?
Yes, but let me say that I love to drink soft drinks. I love it. If I keep on drinking, because the taste is really good, what kind of body shape I will have?
It's like a drug.
Yes, Yeah.
So
what I'm saying is that, okay, we can invite the foreign investment in casino business, but how much? There are many things to be considered.
I think the regulation to allow the casino in Jeju Island is like allowing use of drug. If you use drug, you may feel good in a short period of time. That means Jeju economy may get better for a short period of time. But after all, it hurts your health. So it hurts the society, Jeju society, and national
local economy as well, so it's not good.
Well, I think some of our viewers may or may not disagree with what we are saying in the studio, but there's one person who has somewhat of a strong opinion on easing regulations. Here's Mr. Kwon Tae-shin, the president and CEO of the Korea Economic Research Institute.
There are many examples. Most famous one, in early 1980s in the United Kingdom, when United Kingdom was called the English disease. Margaret Thatcher came in power in 1979, and she made a huge deregulation and then the privatization. As a result, the UK economy came back. And another example in early 1980s, which is called Reaganomics, done by President Reagan. He did a lot of deregulation. As a result, US economy revived very quickly. And even these days, Australia, the Prime Minister Abbott came power, and then he did a lot of deregulation. It seems to me that we are at the beginning of a Japanese-style long-term recession. So coming 2-3 years, kind of a very critical period for Korea not to follow Japanese model. In that sense, Deputy Prime Minister Choi Kyung-hwan did a lot of things to boost our economy by increasing investment and consumption. So the biggest issue is how to make or help Korean companies to do more investment. So to do that, I think a deregulation and then the business-friendly environment in many ways, taxation issue, labor issue. So that is the key issue, how not to follow Japanese model.
Well, we can't overlook policies that are aimed at domestic companies. The new policy is demanding the big companies to put their saved cash into the market, and then they get tax exemption, or if not, they get tax penalty. Yeah. What is your take on this issue?
Well, they have a lot of money and they have to spend. Well, in principle, I agree with the government policy. In that policy. During the period 2008 to 2012, the 4 years period, the business income has increased by 80%. But the household income has just increased by 26%, more than triple. That means national income is concentrated in business, not in households. So if the government can let the business sector spend more money, then it will vitalize the economy, definitely. So we need tax reform to reform the business income and to transfer the income to household income. I mean, in rational way. And then we may have higher consumption, then we may have more investment. And that's the vitalization of the whole economy. But still, I doubt about the effect of that. If you look at the ownership structure of the big companies, 40% of the owners are foreign investors. So if they increase dividends or the income, something like that, only the foreign investors get the benefits. So it's like an exodus of national wealth. The second problem is that the business companies, they accumulate cash, that's true. But they say that we don't have business opportunities. They cannot find it. So they're just accumulating cash for future investment. So if the government let business companies forcefully to spend the money, then they don't have reserves for future investment. They may cause a problem later on. So the policy is a good policy, but it should be structured well. That means we must have new industries such that they can have opportunities to invest. Then they force them to spend more money and to invest more money. And that's, I think, the policy we should take.
And there's also the criticism that the policy will only be beneficial to the conglomerates only and not the small and mid-sized businesses, because it will be easier for the big companies to meet whatever the set guideline will be, and it's a different story for smaller businesses.
Yes, in fact, one of the challenges facing Korean economy is how to revitalize the small and medium-sized enterprises and independent businessmen. They should play more actively to achieve the higher economic growth, to keep the sustainability in the Korean economy growth. But as Professor Lee explained, I think already, some policies are tuned to, too much considerations for big business conglomerates. So I think basically it should be reconsidered, and it should be added up by new detailed policies, measures. Otherwise, they cannot avoid the serious criticism. So I think that's one of the points which I want to make. And if I had one thing more, the government decide the tax the corporate internal savings. Well, as I just find some data for the last 5 years, the top 10 business conglomerates in Korea, they increased their internal savings by 90%.
Yeah, that's true, yes.
Yes, so the money which they have in their pockets right now is 516 trillion won. It's really huge money. So the main reason why the government decided to tax the corporate internal savings is let them use their money, let them invest in the money, and then let them give more money to their workers in the form of salaries. But I think when I review the new economic policy introduced by Minister Choi, they do not fully explain how they make a bridge between the money which the big companies will spend and the increase of the household income. There should be very well considered, well prepared policies needed to make bridges between these two things, money and increase of household income. Without preparing those kind of measures, I think, as I said before, this policy, this decision cannot be avoided as the policy for the rich people and the big business conglomerates.
So you mentioned bridge. I think that's a good point. The bridges between the big companies and the general workers should be the small companies. We have a kind of food chain among them. Up here is big companies, in the middle the small companies, and down here the workers. And the government say we have trickle down, but never trickles down. So in the middle, these small and medium-sized companies must be well developed, and the income should flow from the top to the bottom. But without small companies, the income never flows to the down to the bottom. That's the problem, I think.
So the key will be to be able to sort out which money needs to come out of the company's pockets and circulate in the market. Right, let's hear some more thoughts on this topic. The president of the Korea Institute for Industrial Economics and Trade, Mr. Kim Do-hun, talked to us. Take a look.
Giving tax breaks to major companies that tap into their internal reserves has actually been done before. But the measure ended in 2002. Since then, the internal reserves of companies, in contrast with their whole assets, have increased by over 20%. It was lower than 10% before. If we implement the tax exemptions again on major companies that release more of their funds, it could benefit both the companies and the national economy. The government decided to implement the policy again in order to induce companies to put more of their cash stockpiles back into the market for investment. The cash from major companies can flow into households in the form of wages and stock dividends. The government has tried to find an ideal growth engine that can contribute to boosting the economy, both through companies and households. There have been concerns that the effect of all of this might be restrictive, that is actually possible, as the target of this new policy is limited to the top 30 companies with assets of 50 billion won. The effects of the policy might be limited. But most companies that have huge amounts of internal reserves are major companies. Samsung Group and Hyundai Motor hold around 3/4 of all internal reserves. So if these major companies actively release their cash back into the market, we can expect positive results.
So we'll have to wait and see if the plan will be effective in circulating more cash in the market. But one thing for sure is that there needs to be a solid balance between large and small companies. And on that note, we are going to connect to Mr. Herman Zeman. He's the very person who coined the term hidden champions, which refers to relatively unknown but highly successful companies. Hello, sir. Thanks for your time today.
You're welcome.
Now, what do you think is the significance of supporting small businesses and traders when it comes to boosting domestic demand?
I don't think that this is a very effective way to boost domestic demand. I see more long-term potential for small businesses and traders in the export sector. I think internal growth must be rather driven by boosting demand, but there the Korean society has a similar problem to the German society, namely demography. The birth rate is low, so the number of young people is low, and old people don't buy that much. So I think the bigger potential for small and mid-sized businesses is in stronger engagement in exports than in boosting domestic demand.
What kind of measures should be taken by the Korean government in order to support small businesses and the traders?
I see mainly two areas. First is to help them in internationalizing. There are many small companies in Korea who have the technical competencies, for instance, as suppliers to the chaebol, to sell their products internationally, but they are not doing this due to a lack of penetration in foreign markets. They don't have their own subsidiaries, unlike German hidden champions. So helping them in internationalizing and globalizing would be very effective. And on a broader scale, I think the Korean society has to open itself more to the global world. This means starting with education, more exchanges of students, internships abroad, also English language capabilities. This is the foundation for globalization of a country, and there Korea is good relative to other Asian countries, much better than Japan, but much weaker than, for instance, Germany. So a broad international education for the young generation is the foundation for future success in the global world.
All right, thank you for your analysis today. That was Mr. Herman Zeman, the very person who coined the term hidden champions.
Choinomics is one of the most talked about topics these days. It refers to a newly announced economic policy and is named after Finance Minister Choi Kyung-hwan. It is unprecedented to name a new economic policy after the head of economic affairs, not the head of state. It's indicative of the high expectations for the second economic team led by Finance Minister Choi Kyung-hwan. Choinomics had an immediate effect. Stock prices have been on the rise since Choi Kyung-hwan was appointed as Finance Minister, and they see bumps anytime new policies are announced. In July, when government measures to boost the domestic economy were announced, the total volume of housing sales saw a year-on-year increase of 94%, the largest jump since 2009. According to a survey conducted by the Bank of Korea on August 27th on consumer behavior, the Composite Consumer Sentiment Index has risen 2 points this month to 107. Will the effects of Choinomics continue to cause an upturn? We'll have to pay close attention to how it develops in the near future.
Professor Lee, the government economic policies usually take the name of the president, but instead of Choinomics, we have Choinomics.
Yeah.
What do you think is the real reason behind this?
We did have Choinomics before, but I guess it didn't gain much of an attention than Choinomics.
Choinomics and Choinomics are different. Choinomics just emphasize pumping money and easing regulations. But Choinomics emphasize three things. First, fair competition between small companies and big companies. Second, creative economy to produce new industries. Third, the welfare policy for the underprivileged. So the Choinomics is whole picture of the economy. But the Choinomics is a small part of it. So we shouldn't confuse them. Two different economics, I think.
Well, Finance Minister Choi Kyung-hwan was the floor leader of the ruling Saenuri Party after all. How will his political background and presence help track the Korean economy?
Well, I think he has very, very diverse and colorful experiences. Before he became a politician, he used to work at one of the economic daily media, and also he used to work for international financial organizations such as EDCF, and then also he was in the academics for a while. So he has a very diverse background. I think it will be very helpful for him to work as the leader of the Korean economic team. And then, particularly, he has very close relationship with President Park Geun-hye, since it was like it has been established since 2004. So I think, according to the report, President Park has given a high credit on him. So I think this is one of the positive asset for him, because that to implement the policy, he needs a very strong leadership. Strong leadership even include the support from the politicians as well as president. So in this context, he has a good the assets to implement his policy. Well, certainly whether the policy is good or not is totally different question. But certainly as a policy practitioner, certainly he has good terms and conditions, I think.
Well, for the government, he may be a positive asset. For the economy, he may be a negative asset. I have concern. Well, he's a politician rather than scholar. So his policy tends to be political.
Right.
And the politicians have no interest in fundamental change of the economy and long-term planning, long-term policy, etc. They have just interested in short-term policy. They makes the economy, boom again, and to woo the voters. So that's the kind of concern. He's hasting too much, and just try to show something to the people, and saying, "I'm doing fine," and this is government policy, and so on.
So I think the role of the opposition party and NGOs, the role of the NGOs seems to be very important. One point which really makes us feel really worry about the situation is that who can change the decision of Minister Choi, because he has announced the new economic policy just 1 week after his appointment, and then he has shown very strong leadership to the market. But there are no one who can control him. Not control. But change, affect his decision. So I think that to create the very fruitful outcomes, I think there should be the strong. What can I say? Control against him. Check and balance seems to be very important. So I think that he is a very able man. But he's a politician. So the sound, the balance and check function should be very needed, I think.
So the best scenario would be for him to work with his financial advisors and make a great policy and use his political background to push forward with those policies. Some people compare the Choinomics to Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe's Abenomics, and there are concerns that it would bring about similar outcomes, especially a depreciated local currency.
Yeah. Well, Abenomics and Choinomics, they have two things in common. The first, they're doing the money priming, and another common thing is they are using political policy, just a short-term policy. They don't care about the long-term change in the economy. So those two are the common things between those two economic policies. But we have to be very careful. If we just follow Abenomics, they may bring about a disaster. The Japanese economy and Korean economy are very different.
Yes.
First of all, Japan has a strong basis of manufacturing, equipped with strong basis of the basic technologies, like technologies of producing parts and components and raw materials and so on. But we don't have them. So we just follow his policy, the Abe policy, like printing money and lowering exchange rate and etc. Then we may have just a bubble. They may have vitalized the economy, but we may have just economic bubble. So just following Abenomics is just too dangerous. First of all, we have to diagnose our economic structure very well, and technological competitiveness, etc. So we must have a good plan to increase technological competitiveness and well-balanced industrial basis. Then we can follow the Abenomics. But we just follow Abenomics, it's just taking a risk.
Didn't Korea used to have strong manufacturing bases, or still have strong manufacturing bases?
Well, it's quite technical thing actually. In some several sectors of industry, we can say that we have strong fundamentals. But as a whole, part industry, and to make one car, we need about 22,000 parts. And then, to have a really strong competitive auto industry, we should also have a competitiveness in the part industry, component industry. Do we have it? Well, I don't think so. So I think very strong fundamentals of the industry does include those kind of things. So I fully agree with Professor Lee's. And then, but I think the one thing which is good is that from the Japanese experiences, well, the Korean in the new economic team seems to buy the idea of Japanese leader, that is the strong will, show the strong will of the government who will make every effort to revitalize the economy. We will use every ways. Well, I think we will not give up. So this is kind of some good lessons we can get from the Japanese experiences. Because of that, I think on the short-term basis, the market respond very positively. So we should use this opportunity to transfer those kind of situation into the sustainable trends. That will be one of the most the important as well one of the most difficult challenges facing the Korean economy.
Well, additional measures are expected to be rolled out in the coming months, so we will have to keep our eyes on the developments. But thank you very much, both of you, for coming into the studio and sharing your thoughts with us.
My pleasure.
And that's all we have for this edition of Upfront.
Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.